Thank you, David. Bearing in mind this morning's presentations, I think I'll introduce it by saying, and now for something completely different. It very much is about the people factor. And if there's one thing I've learned from this morning's presentations, I may not have learned too much, but it's about the fantastic talent, expertise, and experience in many of the people in your organisations. And today's presentation is about age-friendly employment, or the needs of older workers. What do older workers need? They need age-friendly employment, but that really is age-friendly employment within a multi-generational workforce. So two questions are probably going through your mind in terms of this slide. So what is the Centre for Ageing Better? We're a charitable foundation based in London, and so we serve the UK, looking at the challenges that the population faces over 50. And that's sometimes forgotten because, again, life just continues. But there is particular challenges in terms of housing, in terms of health, in terms of communities, and particularly in terms of work. And age-friendly employment is really the ability to access good jobs that are right for you in your 50s, 60s, and 70s and beyond. And that's increasingly important these days, and I'll come on to that in a moment. So just a bit about myself. I'm an older worker. I don't like saying that. I like saying midlife until it continues to perhaps a bit of an older worker sort of cohort. I was with BT for over 30 years. I worked with many teams, hosted lots of events in that building there, which some of you may recognise, and worked in particular with the media and broadcast team who were based there when I worked for BT. And a lot of that has been about digital transformation, which has been interesting in terms of my new role in the charity sector, in terms of looking at how people can best capitalise and leverage digital technologies, which are particularly important with, again, midlife and older people. And I moved from the commercial sector to the charity sector, which again I think is a good perspective in terms of looking at the ability for anyone to move sector to sector to sector. And sometimes that's not appreciated, and sometimes people don't feel that they can do. But I think it's an increasingly important capability these days. So a quick question for you really, which is hands up if you feel you've encountered ageism personally, and by encounter you may have heard something, you may have been witnessing something, you may have seen something, a word, you may have heard a colleague, you may have basically felt a little bit uncomfortable. And firstly, outside of work, any sort of feelings of encountering ageism outside of work? Any hands up? Thank you, thank you. And then within a work environment, and this is obviously, again, nothing to go away with today in terms of it's all confidential really, in terms of any feelings of ageism within the work environment. Thank you again. Thanks for your honesty there. Because age is a protected characteristic. The UK had an Equality Act in 2010. I'm aware we have an international audience as well, but that went through the 9 protected characteristics. And age is a protected characteristic, and it's increasingly important that we all look at that in terms of what can we do to make sure that we reduce and minimise ageism, particularly in terms of looking at it from, again, the work perspective, because the demographics don't lie, and we are facing quite a tough situation coming up. So I just want to provide a big picture in terms of the UK workforce landscape. And a lot of people, even with the cost of living crisis, with probably an upcoming recession, don't believe that there are actually just under 1 million job vacancies right now in the UK. That's often quite a surprise. It's 988,000. It's actually just gone below the 1 million. But compounded with that are lots and lots of skill shortages. And you're probably aware of that in your own industry. And certainly the Open University do a fantastic guide called the Business Barometer, where they list by sector the skill shortages. And boy, are there lots of skill shortages, particularly in technical roles. And of course, there's that question then about what can you do? Well, a lot of organisations think about training, but obviously there is a great talent pool in terms of the over 50s, in terms of people that would like to work in particular roles, people that may have left the workforce, perhaps during the COVID pandemic. And so there is a tremendous amount of, as I said, skill shortages with the job vacancies. And you can see that figure there, £6 billion or £6.6 billion was the estimate of the skills and labour shortages costing UK businesses annually. And that figure was calculated before the pandemic. So it's a scary figure in terms of the situation which affects all of us in terms of society, the economy and the nation. Interestingly, I think hopefully it's a good reflection, 32% of UK TV and radio workforce is 50 plus, including 22% of senior managers. I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. Obviously, percentages can always be a bit better, but I think that's a nice reflection in terms of this industry. But then I think, what about succession planning, workforce planning? What about that vast amount of knowledge and institutional memory that might be lost if people go? And that's particularly important in terms of smaller organizations. I've spoken with a lot of employers and organisations over the last 12 months, and these are the key areas of focus in terms of being age-friendly. Bit of a clue here, this might come up later in a possible sort of a quiz-like environment, so these three terms are particularly important. Recruitment, retention and development. Recruitment in terms of being age-friendly, in terms of thinking about the last time that someone may have been through an interview or recruitment process. What can you do in terms of making your job ad? How often do you, review and adapt your job ads? And obviously, I'm aware that, if you're a people manager, this may be something that affects you. But today's presentation is really about how much you can share with your HR colleagues, with your people management colleagues in your own organisations. I really would recommend that you connect with myself and my colleague McKeely in the audience. After this morning's presentation, we have lots more that we can go through with you in terms of some of our key literature here. But recruitment in terms of job-friendly ads, in terms of a job-friendly interview and preparation process. Retention, this was probably the one thing that kept a lot of people up at night, and they wouldn't really say it. It's a key metric that is quite worrying, particularly again in smaller businesses, but a lot of skill shortages, a lot of people worried about succession planning. What can you do in order to make sure that you connect and listen to your midlife and older workers? How well do you know them in terms of maybe looking at the staff surveys? Do you have an employee resource group? Do you just connect with them personally? And that's increasingly important, as I said, these days in terms of not wanting to lose someone and then trying this hard task business of trying to get people to return maybe if they've sort of semi-retired. But the third area is equally important. It came up in a lot of conversations, which is about learning and development. And I think this is a bit of a two-way coin in the sense that there is a perception that older workers, midlife and older workers, you feel, I know it all, I don't need to have any more learning. But lifelong learning is so important in modern employment. And then secondly, any ageism, any ageist attitudes that managers may have in terms of, oh, they don't need to go on that course, no, you don't need to do that. And therefore, again, that ability for that person to feel undervalued and therefore, again, lose some currency in terms of developing in that role, developing in that organisation, developing in another organisation. So I'm just going to go through those three terms in a bit more detail now, and I'm going to give you a video then after this in terms of how they can all come together. So recruitment, putting age as a characteristic into your equality, diversity and inclusion plan. I'm aware that sometimes these don't happen in smaller organisations, but it is important to consider age as you consider some of the other characteristics. It does, again, put you on a path to taking some action. If you don't put in a plan, you don't take action, you don't discuss it, you don't develop a KPI, so on and so forth. Reduce any bias in your job ads. Your job ads probably have not been reviewed for some time, so looking at language, looking particularly at imagery, if you use that as well, looking at how you can just reflect the job ad in terms of skills that you need and not use terms which are actually perhaps a little ageist or actually don't really mean much, in terms of experienced or recent graduate or innovative or energetic. You may have seen some of these terms and you think, what the hell does that mean? Absolutely means nothing at all. And again, it's that ability to attract that wider possible pool. If you think about some of those stats earlier, recruitment pools are actually becoming narrower and narrower. There's a demographic challenge in terms of less people coming into the workforce because the baby boom of the mid-60s are now going into retirement, and there was quite a sharp fall then. So the ability to forward plan and start to think about how to make sure you get that widest possible pool, good talent, good experience, that can actually, again, keep you ahead of your competitors. Reduce any bias in your job ads, I've mentioned that. And then in terms of building awareness and confidence, that's about policies. Now, policies are great. We've talked about policies this morning to a limited extent, but it's how well is that converted into training of people and line managers. Awareness and confidence building in terms of what should I say, what shouldn't I say? Should I mention the R word being retirement? No, don't really mention that. It's more about the ability to start to think about where does that person see themselves now and in the future. Just because someone is 55 doesn't mean to say that they've actually sort of hit the end of the line. I mean, with no retirement age now, someone could keep going for many, many years in terms of adding real value and bringing that capability back into the business. Retention, building an age-friendly culture. Now this is, again, when you see the word culture, you think, what does that mean? I think it means basically the ability to step back and just review your organization, look at your data. Many of the organizations I speak to don't actually look at their data enough. They just look at it by eyesight. We're okay, yeah, we're fine. But the ability then to say, well, how many people over 50 did we actually put in that last recruitment pool for that job ad? None? 1, 2, very, very small numbers. What can we do to improve that? How can we just check where they might fall down in terms of people not going all the way through to interview and successful appointment? And again, what can we do to see what challenges does that bring? What action plans can we take to move forward? Emphasising flexible working options, a huge area here. I'm sure we're all aware post-COVID how much we embrace flexible working. It's the #1 driver. The UK government have actually done a survey of this, and it's really about the ability to be creative and innovative in flexible working. It's the #1 driver for midlife and older workers because of the ability to think about how do they care with parents, grandchildren, other responsibilities. Consider a midlife MOT. This, again, sounds a bit naff, but it's really that ability to have a midlife career review. I think I read something this week about in Denmark, employers there talk to their midlife and older workers in terms of what are your future options, what are your plans. So the midlife MOT is about health, wealth and well-being, and not just focusing on the ability to think about retirement and when are you going to retire and do you have enough savings for that. So to bring this all together, I'm going to introduce a video which talks about our age-friendly employer pledge. Oh, and development. Oh, God. Way ahead of my time. Development, right. Don't forget this. Take targeted action to ensure equitable access. That is, again, just making sure that there is that ability that you don't miss any L&D plans with older workers. Providing career guidance at midlife, the midlife MOT, and provide mentoring and reverse mentoring opportunities. I think this is really important. The ability for thinking about training is not just a formal course, it's about the ability to transfer that knowledge from one colleague to another. Mentoring is fantastic in terms of bringing that knowledge to bear, but also reverse mentoring in terms of the ability for the younger workers to think about how can I help some of my midlife and older colleagues with maybe under digital applications, social media. It's all about, again, encouraging that multi-generational workforce, that multi-generational atmosphere. And now the video.
The labour market is changing. Employers are facing challenges like skills shortages and vacancies, and too many are missing out on the opportunities older workers can provide. Having staff of different ages benefits business, but older workers regularly face discrimination and are overlooked. 1 in 3 workers in their 50s and 60s feel their age is a disadvantage in the jobs market. And nearly 1 million people aged 50 to 64 would like to be in work but aren't. There is another way.
Ipsos UK is pledging to be an age-friendly employer because we know that embracing older workers when we have an ageing population is key to our talent challenges and our business success.
At Phoenix, we are passionate to be a truly inclusive and diverse organisation. We think it will make us a much better organisation as a result, and age diversity is an important dimension of that.
The benefits of championing age have been numerous in the organisation. We have brilliant feedback from our colleagues, both longer serving and new that join Saga. They tell us that this is a place that they feel genuinely welcome, that there are opportunities to grow and learn with the organisation, and they feel really valued because of the policies that we have in place.
The advantages of age-friendly employment are clear to see. That's why Ipsos UK, Phoenix Group, Saga and many others are taking our pledge to become an age-friendly employer. This means taking action in at least one of these 5 areas. Create an age-friendly culture. Hire age positively. Enable flexible working. encourage career development at all ages, and ensure everyone has the health support they need. It's time to join them and bring new opportunities to your business too. Make the age-friendly employer pledge today. Get the advantage. Be age-friendly.
Okay, so hopefully that explained the pledge in some visual detail. The pledge is a free nationwide programme for all employers in the UK who simply do recognise the value and importance of older workers, are committed to improve work for people in their 50s and 60s and beyond, and are prepared to take action to help them flourish in a multi-generational workforce. So the multi-generational workforce means that ability to have that natural spread of ages in your organisation. And the OECD some years ago, before COVID, said that a 10% higher proportion of older workers equates to 1.1% again in terms of productivity gains. And a German researcher also stated that that multi-generational workforce again drives innovation. It's not rocket science really, it's that ability to think, yes, we do need to make sure we have all of our talents in the business. So why sign a pledge? I said it's free. Please see us outside if you'd like to get more information on signing a pledge, open to all organisations. And I'll show some of the organisations at the moment who have signed. It's making sure that age is not forgotten. As I say, with demographic changes, it's important that organisations think about workforce planning, think about succession planning, think about how to make their workforce age-friendly and encourage that culture. It doesn't compete with other diversity efforts. It actually is a key element. Everyone has an age, everyone is aging. It's the ability to think about your cohorts. And many organisations do think of that in terms of personas and needs at the various ages. And it's a small but tangible commitment. All we ask is that you take some action in one of those areas mentioned in the video and then report back in a one-on-one conversation with ourselves at the centre, and you can join these sorts of organisations. So we say 283, but pretty much close to 300 now. It's growing by the week. We started about this time last year. Just to say that it's not all corporates, obviously there's some big brands here, including big government departments and so on. 60% are small and medium enterprises. We want to share that knowledge. And what you join is a peer learning network. So you join a peer learning network of other organisations, other people and HR professionals that understand this is what you do to get the best of your talent. This is what you do to change your job ad and so forth. So by signing the pledge, what do you get? Because I don't want to just talk about the costs, but there's no cost. It's free, by the way. But you get a monthly newsletter which shares links to case studies and the latest resources. You get invites to regular webinars covering the range of topics, because obviously today is just a very quick glimpse, but it's the ability to think about things such as learning and culture. Tomorrow we've got a webinar on health support, so we're going to look at musculoskeletal conditions. We're not denying that age obviously comes with some issues, but it's the ability to manage those, to make small adaptations and adjustments. Have that ability to make people feel more comfortable and not let them just leave and lose that person. And we're going to create sector-specific subgroups. It'd be lovely to have a media, broadcast, entertainment group within the pledge. There is currently no organisation of that sort, so please sign up today or this week and you can join that particular bunch. In terms of the thing from today, really I'm aware that this is perhaps more of a technical audience, but if you are people managers, help connect me to your HR team at your organisation or your other networks that you know about in your industry about how to take the pledge as a practical step forward. Have a chat with myself and McKeely in the break afterwards. We have some great resources which are free, which will give you some fantastic tips in terms of recruitment and in terms of looking at how to use the pledge to take the subject forward. Final slide, sign up to the pledge today. I'm aware you probably won't be able to do that from where you're sitting, but just to give you a view that at the Centre for Aging Better, you can look us up on Google and we have a lot of free materials in terms of looking at how to challenge and to look at how we can become more age-friendly, but you have some of the key details there. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.